department who isn't present. But in case any of you don't know, Boris was well known to a lot of us for quite some time, but he suddenly burst on a wider public with a brilliant performance on Have I Got News For You? And since then he's been an absolutely household word, and although it was ironically suggested that he should be the next leader of the Conservative Party, after the next election it might not be so ironical. And Boris, please don't be tactful and don't be too loyal. Stream of consciousness.
Thank you very, very much, Sam, for that very, very generous and by and large, accurate introduction. It's a great pleasure to be following in the footsteps of Erwin Stelzer, who's so many interesting lessons for us, British Conservatives, from the American experience. And I should be returning to that towards the juddering climax of my remarks, which in deference to Sam's wishes, I had not in any way prepared. In fact, I had some thoughts ready about what's wrong with the Labour Party. Was my theme. I don't know why we're all discussing what's wrong with the Conservative Party. The Conservative Party is not in government. We have a Labour government that deserves to be expelled from office. And I thought perhaps it would be helpful in trying to establish what I think is wrong with the Conservative Party and why we haven't yet expelled them from office despite having had a cram in it before. If I said a little bit about what I think is wrong with the Labour Party and what we would put right. And I was thrilled by Sam's introductory confession, and I almost hold him to it, that he's going to vote Conservative at the next election.
No, I didn't say that.
I knew it! Anyway, that he wouldn't vote Labour. Anyway, and I'm delighted that you're not going to vote Labour, Sam, because the Labour Party does not deserve your vote. They are a bossy, nannying, hysterical, interfering kind of government, and that is the kind of government that we Conservatives want to move away from. We want to seize the steering wheel of power and tilt it in the direction of common sense and rationality and less interference. Now, it's a miracle that I'm here tonight at all, because over the weekend I decided for the first time in my life, not because I have any particular hatred of foxes, not because I feel very strongly about the issue of little furry animals. I decided to go hunting, and I got on a horse and terrified myself very greatly for about 5 hours, and I did it purely because I so bitterly resent the way this government chooses to set the prejudices, and maybe there are many people in this maybe people in the ICA who are opposed to hunting. I wouldn't be surprised if you all want to ban it. I'd be amazed if you did, but you'd be totally wrong, because this is something that's been going on in this country for thousands of years. It has absolutely nothing to do with animal welfare. By banning fox hunting, you aren't lifting a pebble from the mountain of cruelty by which the British people oppress animals. It's absolutely nonsense with animals. It's all about gratifying Labour's poor lobotomised backbenchers and giving them some red meat of old-fashioned socialism. And it's about interfering in people's lives, about telling someone to whatever they're doing, they've got to stop doing it. And that is the Labour approach, and the Conservative approach is or should be different. We should be the party of liberation, and we should be the party against what Sam accurately called the creeping collectivism that's going on in this country. And I see it the whole time in Westminster. I see it in the torrent of regulation that this government is producing. And there are 8,500 pages of new laws coming out of the Palace of Westminster every year, compared to about 100 pages when Gladstone was ruling the British Empire. That's absolutely true. And to say nothing of delegated or secondary legislation of one kind or another. And what too few people understand is the fiscal impact of this kind of regulation, and the way regulations are generating new jobs in the public sector, and all the attendant costs that go with those jobs. And that's why we Tories are going to be the party of freedom. We're going to be the party that gets away from that approach to government. And there are all sorts of ways that you can. And I'm delighted, by the way, someone's going to attack me in a minute about ID cards. And I can see Peter Hitchens at the back brewing, spoiling for a fight about ID cards. And I want you to know that we are, Peter and I, ad item on ID cards. We are at one. I oppose them completely, and I'm delighted to see that my party, having gone through a curious spasm of support for this illiberal measure, has decided to abstain on third reading. What's that? And I can guarantee that if and when there is a Conservative government after the next election, I will resist with all the breath in my body any attempt to oppose an ID card upon the British people.
Will you vote against it when it comes up now?
Yeah, I absolutely will. Absolutely will. Vote against it. Absolutely. I simply won't have them. I mean, if you read The Spectator closely, you'll read Peter's, not only Peter's article against them, but you'll read my editorial as well. So,
will you abolish it when you get back in power?
Say again?
Will you abolish the ID when you get back in power?
Yes, yes. Well, thankfully, the ID card won't have time to come in before we come to power. We will come to power, as you all know, on May the 5th. So that's one reason to vote Conservative. But the second and more, not less important reason for considering the Conservative Party favourite is, of course, that we are the party of democracy. We didn't have a very long tradition as the party of democracy in this country. Actually, in a lot of the 19th century, we were a conservative party. We were pretty retrograde. It was the liberals who pushed out the franchise and all the rest of it. But in the 20th century and now in the 21st century, I think it is the Conservative Party that is the party of democracy. Which was the party that had that gave women the vote? The Tory Party.
Who voted for Howard?
Who voted for Howard?
Nobody.
Whatever happened, it was a democratic decision.
1922.
Admittedly, quite a small electorate. But lots of people had every opportunity to vote for Michael Howard in the course.
Oh God.
And there will be no absence of democracy in that particular decision. If you look at what this Labour government has done to our democratic institutions, I do not think you could say it has been very noble or very distinguished. They've got rid of the wonderful buffer zone of the House of Lords and replaced it with a quango craps. They've got this absurd tier of regional government about which we know nothing. We have no loyalty to these people in regional government. Do you know who I'm the MP for Henley-on-Thames. I can tell you absolutely nobody in my constituency has the faintest idea who represents them in Guildford, which is the regional epicentre. Not only they know who represent them, they have no idea how to kick them out, and that's the important thing. But I tell you how they're going to be kicked out. We Conservatives, when we come to power on May the 5th, are going to abolish that whole tier of regional monarchy, and in so doing, that is one of the ways, of course, by which we're going to save £35 billion from public spending, and we're going to find some of the tax cuts that Irwin rightly thinks that we should find. So that is a very, very important part of our democratic attack on what Labour has done. Get rid of the regional monarchy, bring democratic sense to the House of Lords, and didn't you see some more eminent candidates here than the people here on this panel for some sort of democratic election to the upper house in due course, should they be so brave as to put themselves forward. We will have a democratic solution to that. We will resolve the nonsense of the West Lothian problem. You familiar with this one? The absolute outrage, the infamy by which I, as an English MP, representing my English constituents, can be outraged on very, very important questions by what you call a net Scot. A net Scot is a member of the total number of Scots who vote for the government's business, less the total number of Scots who vote against the government's business, where that number is greater than or equal to the total number of Scots needed to carry the government's business. And it is infamous that those Scots can impose upon my constituents in England very controversial measures when I have no corresponding say over those questions in Scotland. And more ridiculous yet, those Scottish MPs themselves have no corresponding say. We Conservatives are going to sort out that anomaly and that abomination by having English votes for English laws. So there's nothing wrong with the Conservative Party on the democratic front, and of course there's a lot more I could say. I could tell you about what we're going to do on Europe, but I'm going to wind up by, because I'm conscious that Sam's going to want me to do that, by saying how much I agree with a lot of what Irwin says about tax and being radical and having the courage of your convictions, and above all, what you said, Irwin, about exuding a kind of Reagan-esque optimism in what we do. I think if we do have a problem at the moment, we've got a lot of wonderful policies, and I think we should actually make our policies yet more radical, particularly on education. Yeah. Why not go the whole way?
Introduce it.
and have a serious, introduce education. Yeah, the problem with education in countries is not enough, it's not good enough. And we should have, I think, a thoroughgoing voucher system and allow people the choice. Don't have this endless one-size-fits-all approach by which the little tin gods in the educational authority can decide where your kid has to go. Why shouldn't we liberate people from that? The Conservatives will succeed if we are seen once again as being the party that's on people's side, that's a positive, progressive, liberating force. That's above all what I would like to do, because I'm a kind of one nation pouring away, but what I really believe is that if you liberate people, and you allow people to get on with their own life, and you stop regulating in this crazy way, then they'll generate the income that you're going to need to help the poorest and the neediest. And that should be the approach we try to get across. And I'm very happy to listen to these lessons from Irwin about what the wonderful things the neocons have done, and all the ways we must be more like the Bush government. All I would say is there are a couple of ways in which I don't think we should be like George W. Bush. If I look at what he's doing on the spending side, I'm not at all convinced that is the way to go. I was in America, I had a wonderful holiday in America recently, and I tell you, I've never seen so many public sector people swarming all over the place. It's government of the people, by the people, for the people, lots and lots and lots of the people doing the government all over. And I'm not sure that is the way, nor do I approve of George W. Bush's anti-free trade measures. So I take some of this stuff about learning from America with a pinch of salt, particularly since, if you read, when you read The Spectator, you will find a fantastic article in which it is explained that Karl Rove, Bush's guru, is himself relying on which tract to set the ideological tone of the next of this Bush administration. It is a book called The Roots of Thatcherism by Shirley Robin Ledman. Absolutely true. It's fascinating. All this Bush social security reform is predicated on Thatcherian ideas. So the idea that British Conservatives have anything to learn from American Conservatives is patently nonsense. They are in the process of learning from us. Thank you very much.
I don't know how I can cap that. I want to try, but can I call on Sean Gabb, who is Director of Communications of the Libertarian Alliance, and that's correct.
Yes.
And he will put us all into the shade by showing how the government really should be opposed, right? Perhaps. Well, it's up to you.
Thank you. Thank you very much. The central issue of this debate tonight, ladies and gentlemen, is what is wrong with British conservatism. My own answer is not very much. I have never known the British conservative movement to be so confident, so passionate, and so generally united on what needs to be done in this country. Whether on tax, Europe, the Constitution, immigration, Conservatives are beginning to set the agenda of debate. It is against Conservatives, I suspect very strongly, that the government's main abomination against our civil liberties, the Civil Contingencies Act, was passed last year. There is a large and growing conservative counterculture. If you look at comedians like Jimmy Carr, if you look at television comedy programs like Monkey Dust and Little Britain, those are objectively conservative in their rejection of the politically correct New Labour model. British conservatism is in very good health. The problem is the Conservative Party. The Conservative Party has been out of office now for nearly 8 years. And even against a government which for corruption and tyranny and incompetence and utter moral bankruptcy is unprecedented in our history, it is almost certain to lose the next election, and quite possibly the one after that. The central issue is not what is wrong with British conservatism, it is what is wrong with the British Conservative Party. And the answer is that the Conservative Party's function, for at least as long as I've been alive, and perhaps for some time longer than that, has not been to articulate and advance conservative interests, but to neutralise conservative opinion. This country is run by the left. The left dominates the administration, it dominates the media, it dominates education and much else. The project of the left is to strip us of our historic liberties and indeed to strip us increasingly of our national identity. The problem faced by the left is that it rules a country which is profoundly conservative. The answer is to have a Conservative Party which is not actually conservative. The answer is to have what some people have called the Quisling right. A Quisling rightist is a conservative who implies promises without making them, and who, when pushed, will make promises without any intention of keeping them. If elected to office, he will do nothing substantial to shake the domination of the left. Oh, he will engage in symbolic politics, he will create much noise over purely incidental issues, but on all that matters, he will not shake or challenge the domination of the left. When he retires from office, he may become the warden of an Oxford college or the chancellor of one of the new universities, and he'll have all the nice plums that come from non-executive directorships in the city. He'll have all of that, and in return, all he has to do is to betray those who voted for him and who trusted him to safeguard all that they hold most dear this side of the grave. Now, until recently, it was difficult for Conservatives to gather in large numbers outside the structures of the Conservative Party. And the structures of that party have been just as good at suppressing internal dissent as the old Communist Party ever was. In recent years, however, Conservatives have been able to come together outside the structures of the Conservative Party, and we are increasingly agreed that a Conservative government is not in the interests of British conservatism. We believe that if by some miracle the Conservative Party could win the next election, we would have 4 or 5 years of much political excitement, many promises of progress, but at the end of that period we would find ourselves with still fewer of our historic liberties than we started, and still less of our national identity. And speaking for myself and for many other people perhaps in this room and certainly outside, if I must be destroyed, I'd rather be speared in the front by someone who looks me in the eye and calls himself my enemy than garroted from behind by a supposed friend. Now, of course, with the approach of an election, we have traditionally felt that magnetic pull. Yes, we've said, these people are trash. They've always broken their promises. But isn't Labour awful? And perhaps this time, these people will do something half decent. Well, it doesn't work now. This generation of the Quisling right is so inept that it can't even tell a straight lie. It's not going to win the next election. And that is a wonderfully liberating knowledge. Because they are not going to win the election, there's no point voting for them. We might as well vote for some other party. Will it be UKIP? Will it be Veritas? Will it be some other party yet to be formed? I don't know. But if we're going to vote, if we're going to waste our vote, we might as well vote for a party that says what we believe, so that our votes can be counted and recognised as what they are. And so, to end where I began, British Conservatism is in extraordinarily good health. The only problem is, well, of course, present comfort accepted, the only problem is that we don't have a Conservative party. What we have is the Quisling right, and we're not going to vote for it. That's it.
Two parties on the rack.
Right, well, but let me very briefly say, the question is, what is the choice of the election between War Party 1 and War Party 2? It's a fair point, both the main parties were in favour of the war. Actually, I don't think the next election is going to be fought on the issue of the war in Iraq. Because the war in Iraq, for better or for worse, is over. It's had many tragic results. It's actually, I think, also got the potential still to produce some good. And I don't think we should neglect that possibility. I think to answer Irwin's earlier jibes about the Conservative Party and their apparent attempt to suck and blow once, and it's a fair criticism. I supported the war. I did vote for it because I, perhaps naively, thought that it was the best thing for the people of Iraq to get rid of Saddam Hussein. I naively believed that the Pentagon had an idea what it was doing, and that they, I assumed that they would have a plan for the post-war scenario. I assumed that they had people waiting to take over the historical democracy. I had no idea that 17,000 Iraqi civilians were going to die in the intervening period, which was the plan. I regret it very profoundly. And if I had to do my vote again, I'm not at all sure which way I would go. I think I would certainly not vote for the war in the way that it took place. And I do think it perfectly proper, though, and I want to get back, because Owen made this point about lying, and you made this point about lying. I do think it perfectly proper, given the extremely controversial nature of that war, for us to hold the Prime Minister to account over the way he misrepresented the data about the state of Sudan's preparedness vis-à-vis weapons of mass destruction. There's absolutely no reason why you shouldn't support getting rid of Saddam Hussein, and yet deplore the way the Prime Minister exaggerated the threat presented to us by Saddam Hussein.
Good enough to get rid of him.
And I think I still think that we should impeach the guy. By which I mean we should call him to account in the House of Commons and get him to explain why he ramped up the data in the way that he did. And I see absolutely no criticism. You know, if you want to summarise my position, it will be right to fight, wrong to lie. And it seems perfectly intellectually coherent, if I admit politically difficult to explain.
I will accept Boris.
I think, sorry, Boris, I think you had more reservations than you now admit to about the war. And I believe that if you had followed your conscience at the time and had voted against this war, and if many other Conservative MPs whom I know who privately admit to reservations had followed their conscience, the Conservative Party would not be level pegging with Labour in a few rather dodgy opinion polls. We would be back to the late 70s, just waiting for the day when we could sweep these people out of
It's very interesting. I do remember having grave doubts about it, but I remember thinking that basically I'd got it wrong over Kosovo, because I opposed the Kosovo thing.
And rightly.
Well, you can say I opposed that. But I then went to Pristina and saw the liberation of Pristina, and I saw the British Army come in and, rescue those Albanians and all the rest of it. It's a disaster. But I felt profoundly, when I saw that happen, that I'd been wrong in my earlier resistance. I believe getting rid of Milosevic was a good thing to do. And you're right that I had doubts, but when I came to vote on Iraq, I thought I don't want to be against an act of liberation again. I don't want to be against, getting rid of a tyrant again. I want to be in favour of this if it can possibly work. And I crossed my fingers and hoped that the Pentagon. And I'd get rid of Mugabe too, by the way. Someone said, what about Mugabe or Gaddafi or whoever you just said?
What should the Conservative Party do to inspire the young? The answer is to be conservative. Now, the question is what we mean by conservatism. If you mean a blind attachment to having meat and soup veg for dinner every day, and wearing a suit and collar to bed, well, no. I don't think you'll get very far with that kind of conservatism. And I don't think that American conservatism has much to teach us. America may well speak the same language as us, but they are a different nation. England is a country which peculiarly has possessed a tradition of individual freedom for the past 1,000 years.
Yeah.
It is our birthright. Trial by jury, freedom of the press, habeas corpus, limited government, representative government. Those are the values of this country, and that is what a Conservative Party should be talking about. Now, those are not boring values, they are extraordinarily exciting. And bearing in mind that all of those values are under attack from this most worthless government, a Conservative government, a Conservative opposition should be much more liberal, because liberalism is part of our tradition, and therefore a Conservative must also be a liberal. This is not the case in many other countries. It may not be the case even in the United States, but it is certainly very much the case here. And what young people would like to hear is, you want to wear nipple rings, you want to dye your hair green, you want to listen to rather strange music. It is your right, because that is your birthright. What we want to have is a free people in an independent country. There should be no conflict between talking of getting out of the European Union and getting the British government out of people's bedrooms and private lives. They go together, and that is what the Conservative Party should be talking about.
Here, here.